Our next session, Can Animal Agriculture Be a Sustainable Solution? Please welcome Eric Mintenthal, Chief Strategy Officer, The Meat Institute.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a fabulous climate week. I'm Nicole Del Sasso. I'm going to be moderating this panel. I'm a director at Guidehouse, and I'm also the executive director for supplier leadership on climate transition. Supplier Locked is a collaborative of 30 iconic brands, mostly in food and agriculture, and they're working together pre-competitively to help educate the supply chain and provide resources and tools to help them reduce emissions. The Meat Institute, as well as McDonald's, are also members of this collaborative, and we're going to be talking in this panel about how every piece of the supply chain and every part of the supply chain is working together to advance climate action. We have a representative from each member of the supply chain here. First, we have Debbie, who is a cattle rancher from Kansas, beef cattle rancher, and she is also a founding member of the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef and also board co-chairman. We also have Heather, who works with the National Pork Board. So we have beef and pork represented. We also have Martha, who is a dairy nutritionist with a company called Alltech. They are involved in nutrition and supplements to support animals. We're going to be hearing about carbon markets and how that's related to supporting climate change. And then we have Pete from McDonald's. He is the Director of Global Sustainability and Nature and Climate at McDonald's. And we all know that McDonald's purchases a lot of beef and chicken, and so we're going to be hearing all about how McDonald's is supporting decarbonization. And then we have Eric with the Meat Institute, a membership organization that is really working throughout the supply chain to support greenhouse gas emissions reduction and sustainability. So we hope that you are going to take away from today how each part of the supply chain is working individually, but also collectively to help our planet and reduce emissions and improve the health of ag. So we'll start out with Debbie. Debbie, hope you can tell us a little bit about your ranch.
Sure. So Blythe Family Farms is located in eastern Kansas, and I know that you all have flown over Kansas and you think that it's a totally flat state. It is not. Eastern Kansas is a very unique area. It is the tall grass prairie, and the reason that it's still there, it is one of the few places in the world that is still a tall grass prairie. Less than 4% of it remains, but the reason it's still there is because of cattle ranchers like me. So Blythe Family Farms is right in the center of the Flint Hills, and it's all grass, very little crop ground, but we do have some that we raise crops specifically for our cattle. We have around 500 head of registered Angus and commercial Angus-based cows. We mostly raise breeding stock, so we also raise around 400 heifers every year. And the really awesome situation about that is I farm and ranch with my family. Choke up every time I say that, sorry, but I'm very proud of that. My 3 sons are home on the ranch today, and that's why I can be here. Sorry. Very exciting for me, though, because it is a major part of sustainability, right? The foundation of raising beef cows is looking at the full system. You cannot just measure emissions, what a cow burps. You also have to talk about what good things that a cow can bring to our life. So not only is it a tremendously nutritionally dense protein, but also the work that we do on the environment in our unique area, in the tall grass prairie, we have to work to keep it the pristine prairie that it was at the beginning of time. And what that means is only grass, not trees. We have a problem with afforestation in our area. Actually, invasive trees are coming to the prairie. And we have to work very hard to get rid of those invaders. And one of the ways that we do that is to burn the prairie. So we burn the prairie every spring. My boys are an amazing burn crew, and make sure that we are treating the prairie as it was originally intended. And that allows the roots to the grass in the prairie reach down as far as 20 feet into the soil. So every bit of carbon that is taken up through photosynthesis goes deep into the soil. And just so you understand, we do not plant the native tallgrass prairie. It's been there since the beginning of time. We have to manage it right, but we don't plant it, till it, release carbon at any way. So our goal is to make sure that it stays in grass. I want to mention though too, we talk about carbon emissions, and that's always the key conversation. In my area, because the tallgrass prairie has always been there, we have got so much carbon in the soil that we cannot really prove additionality. That's not going to be an opportunity for me on my ranch. But some of the things that cows help us do to maintain the prairie is to make sure that we have biodiversity. We manage for water. We manage for land use change. We don't want it to be taken out of prairie and made into a housing development or a supermarket or even crop ground. So our goal is to make sure that we use all those other opportunities to see what's going on the prairie and how we can keep it at its pristine state.
And what kind of conversations are you having broadly at the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef?
Yeah, so you mentioned that Blythe Family Farms is a founding member. 10 years ago, we decided that we needed to join this movement about beef sustainability. I'd been involved in some other movements before, and it was kind of disappointing because all of the measurements and all of the recommendations were very top-down, very pushing down and pointing the finger specifically at the farmer and rancher. And I'm going to tell you that that doesn't go over well. There are over 700,000 farmers and ranchers that raise beef in America, and we're very independent people. But we have always been focused on doing the right thing because it's the right thing for our cattle, because it's the right thing for the land, and that's what makes us do better. So when we joined the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, we realized that the movement was going to partner very well with the farmers and ranchers. So farmers and ranchers have a tremendous voice, but the roundtable is a true roundtable. It has representatives from every sector, and some are sitting here at the stage here with me right now. But that we actually work very hard to find ways, to research ways, to show farmers and ranchers, as well as every sector along the value chain, how we can do better and become more sustainable. So one of the goals that the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef has set is for us to be climate neutral, the entire beef value chain in America to be climate neutral by 2040. And we are well on our way there. Everyone along the value chain is doing the work that it takes.
Great. Thank you. Heather, you're a public health veterinarian, and you also work at the National Pork Board. Tell us about what the Pork Board's doing.
Sure. So when it comes to the sustainability conversation in the swine industry, kind of piggybacking, pun intended, off of Debbie here, we really take a systems-based approach, right? We don't just look at environmental health, we don't just look at animal health, we don't just look at public health or food safety. We're looking at them all simultaneously. So the short answer is a lot, and we have programs, but it's important to understand what approach we're taking and how we arrive at the programs and how we implement them. So just a quick background, the National Pork Board and the farmers that we represent, over 60,000 pig farmers nationwide, are grounded in a set of principles that drive ethical, responsible, and sustainable pork production. And those are called our We Care ethical principles. There's 6 of them. And if anyone's familiar with the One Health approach, I'm a One Health champion, so I apply that to anything and everything I do. You can see how the 6 ethical principles, animal well-being, environmental health, public health, food safety, our people or worker safety, and community map back to that One Health approach. So human health, animal health, and environmental health. And those are the principles that drive everything we do. It's really the approach that we use to reach that sustainable goal. And so once we translated those principles into practices, it really translates into educational or training programs. So we have the Pork Quality Assurance Plus program, which we have huge buy-in. A supermajority of producers are certified in this program. The ones that submit to the national packers, which are represented here, a supermajority again, are certified in that program, meaning not only are they informed of the principles, but those principles are translated into practices that they can be trained on and then implement. So then that gets us to the proof point of how do we then confirm that they're actually doing what they're saying they're doing on the farm. Well, we have several ways to do that. We have the site assessment, which is part of that Pork Quality Assurance Plus program, which is often implemented by a first-party person, someone very close to the farm. But there's also a third-party audit by individuals that come onto the farm and confirm that those practices that, again, map back to those principles are being implemented. And again, that is really tied back to that One Health approach. So we're looking holistically at the topic of sustainability. We don't just look at environment because, again, we realize environment is tied to animal health and public health in animal production. And then finally, I will point out that we also have, on top of that, right, we have opportunities to take deep dives in each of those principles. So as you look at environmental sustainability specifically, we have a Pork Cares on-farm impact report. It is a mouthful even for me, but it essentially provides producers with the information they need to improve their practices, right? They give data to this program. It then creates a report that they can use. So they receive data back of where am I, what am I doing, what does my carbon emissions, my CO2 emissions, what does that look like, and how can I continuously improve in that space? So that's an example of just within the environmental sustainability space, how we build programs, but know that we are always looking at the topic holistically. And we want to hear from you, and how can we continuously improve in this space, again, in that One Health holistic way.
Yeah, that's great. So we've learned a bit about how regenerative agriculture is helping to shape sort of how we're focused on beef and cattle ranching. And we've also heard about sort of health and nutrition and how that's really important for pork. And now, Martha, we're going to hear a little bit about, you're a dairy nutritionist, but you work at Alltech, which is a nutrition and supplement company.
Right.
Connect nutrition to what you're also focused on, which is carbon markets.
Yes. So in my background, I come at it from a standpoint of having done consulting work with large and small dairies across the US for many years. And whenever we think about sustainability, right now, what we often think about is how to change or lower the absolute reduction of an animal. Whether it's a dairy cow, a beef cow, the swine industry, poultry, it doesn't really matter. But in reality, I would challenge that we also need to be aware that our true goal is to feed a population and utilize those resources while producing the most protein and having the least amount of environmental impact. So from an Alltech perspective, one of the things that we really focus on is how can we improve the productivity of the animal. So many of us are athletes, even if it's weekend athletes. I happen to be one of them. And the way that I explain what Alltech does is we create things that allow the animal to perform at her best. As I ramp up for a marathon or a half marathon or whatever it is I'm doing, my nutrition changes. What I focus on changes so that I feel good, I perform well, things of that nature. That's where Alltech really excels. And whenever I look at the dairy industry specifically, and I go back and look at 1999 versus 2024, for instance, there's been a change in our national herd of 2.2%, very modest. We've stayed relatively stable. But in that same duration of time, we produced 38.9% more milk off of 2.2% more animals. And if we figure that on average, a cow produces about 400 to 444 grams of methane a day, a dairy cow, that means that we've improved the carbon intensity of our milk supply in the US by 26.5%. That is sustainability. At the same time, there are nature-based additives that can actually reduce the total amount of methane. So not only do we have the ability to drive productivity, simultaneously, we can lower the emissions of that animal at the same time. And where it becomes a win is whenever you have technologies that do both of those simultaneously. So if you have something that you feed a cow that lowers her absolute emissions by, say, 9.5%, albeit some people think that's modest, we think it's important. And simultaneously drive her production simply by allowing her to utilize the nutrients that she's consuming in a more efficient way.
Yeah. So how is that working in practice? What's going well? What can be improved?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going well. There are actually programs that are in action today that are paying dairy farms for lowering their total enteric emissions, and it's operated by third parties. Much like Heather was talking about, there's a lot of third-party verification of data and of application, and farms are getting paid for it. Where I think we could improve, and there's a big opportunity for this, is if we look into some other markets that might not have the same level of productivity that North America does today. And specifically, I'll speak to Brazil as an example. Brazil has the opportunity through what they're doing from a soil regeneration standpoint and their understanding and the deployment of various techniques around rotational grazing, regenerative ag, silvopastures, genetics, and the use of supplemental nutrition, that they could double their production without knocking down another tree. And this is simply through deploying things that we know today and having a mechanism that we can help accelerate that. I think that would be a key way that we could improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing to hear that farmers are starting to be incentivized for their actions, because I come from a world of trying to scale and accelerate really quickly, and I think that's what's going to help get us there.
It's a very exciting time.
Yeah. Pete, how is McDonald's helping to reduce emissions and work with your supply chain related to beef and chicken?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I wanted to... is my microphone on? I can't hear myself.
Maybe try to put it a little bit closer.
Hello?
Feels broken.
Can you guys hear me?
No.
No.
Can you hear me? Here.
Yeah, share.
Thanks, Eric. This is convenient. Hey, firstly, I admire you guys' tenacity, staying with it. 4 or 5 days of Climate Week. Thank you for joining us. My journey to this platform, like Debbie, began on a farm. I grew up on a farm, and my wife is at home on our family farm, working with her father. And carrying on our traditions for, that we've been for the last 200 or 300 years on our farm. So I have the pleasure of working with farmers now all across the world and learning from them every single day about what sustainability actually means. And I'm proud to lead the... Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Oh. Is this? Yeah, here we go. So yes, I'm really proud to lead the nature and climate goals for a business that feeds over 70 million people every single day across 40,000 communities, 100 different countries. It's a big responsibility, but at the heart of our business is collaboration and trust. We know that sustainability isn't a destination, it's a constantly evolving journey. We all know that we have done a lot to get to the point where we are. There is still a lot to do. And we need to do that in a changing environment as well. I talk to farmers across the world, and we can all see that the seasons are changing. The weather patterns are different. We have a bit more extreme weather to deal with. And we have prolonged periods of rain and of drought. And while we've got ambitious goals on climate and nature as a company, actually at its heart, what we need to do is work with our farmers to ensure that their businesses are resilient, that they're investing in the future, because as Debbie said, there's a lot of farmers out there, millions of farmers in our supply chain, and our business depends on every single one of them seeing a future and continuing to invest in their business, producing food that our customers love. And so when we're thinking about sustainability, actually it has to be delivered in partnership with the farmers, but it also has to be designed in partnership with farmers as well. Because when you are talking about something like regenerative agriculture, although I'm looking at this on a global scale, actually it's down to a field-by-field scale on farms. And if we don't design programs that work in the real world, then we won't be able to deliver those real-world benefits. So to do that, what do we need as a global business? Well, we need a lot of pragmatic frameworks. So we're working within a lot of voluntary reporting structures, increasingly regulated reporting structures as well. Those regulations and those structures need to match the real world. They need to meet the world as it is, and it's a complex, dynamic, quite messy place quite often, and they need to incentivize investment on the ground in communities, solving problems across landscapes, not tie too much up in trying to understand where absolutely everything comes from all the time. And I think that collectively, as an industry, we do a pretty good job in coming together, understanding what those issues are, trying to make sure that we are listening to each other effectively and investing in those on-the-ground projects. And we have a number of different projects over the years that we have invested in at a pilot scale, first to understand the actual, not just the technical challenges of delivery, but often in farming, the social challenges of delivery as well. It's a family business, and we need to make sure that the solutions work for everybody. But now I feel like we're really getting to a point where we're scaling some of those initiatives and having a bigger collective impact.
Can you share an example for everybody about a project that you did on the ground, make it really tangible, and then maybe you could explain how that's sort of starting to scale?
Yeah, so for a number of years, we've been working with organizations like the US Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, the European Roundtable for Beef Sustainability, to understand the challenges and the drivers. In the US, we've got numerous examples of projects that we've invested in with our suppliers, but also with NGO partners as well. And just last week, we announced a 4 million acre regenerative agriculture project, the biggest we've ever done worldwide, over 7 years, 38 states in the US, 200 million collective investment. And that's with the Nature and Wildlife Foundation, Nature Fish Wildlife Foundation. And we're really proud to partner with organizations like that and our suppliers and other partners who understand those on-the-ground issues. Now, the challenge for me is how to make sure that that also makes sense in terms of how we're talking about the change that we're able to lead on the ground with farmers and how we're able to communicate that to our customers.
Yeah. And what challenges are you seeing with scaling? What kinds of things, if you could just summarize, what needs to be, what we need to sort of overcome?
So certainly with animal supply chains, certainly cattle supply chains, cattle move around. And there are lots of people to engage within those supply chains.
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges of scaling is just the sheer number of people that we have to deal with. the fact that supply chains are dynamic and they've grown up to be dynamic, so we can deliver the right product to the right customer at the right time. And there are multifaceted supply chains. They're not simple. They don't look like you would like them to look on paper. But if we don't meet that real world challenge and do that engagement, then we're not going to lead real change on the ground. And so working with standards bodies to try and figure that out and think about how we can develop solutions that work in that dynamic environment is one of those challenges. And the sheer engagement, working with local partners who understand that local context, who can deliver programs across a lot of farmers, engage farmers as well, help farmers to talk to other farmers and learn what works, what can be deployed, and give actually farmers the confidence to deploy things, because in a lot of cases, it's either learning or relearning things that we did a long time ago, and thinking through concepts and applying them to your own farm as well. Yeah. So I think we've done a lot of the 2010s were the stage where we did a lot of the kind of very simple things. Now the complex, challenging things are in front of us, and I think it gives us a lot of opportunity to work together as an industry.
Great. Eric, the Meat Institute. I think it would be great if you could tell the audience a bit about what the Meat Institute does and kind of connect the dots here and maybe fill in some gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. So my job is to tie all of this together to an extent. The Meat Institute represents meat companies across North America, 95% of the red meat that's produced across North America, the majority of the poultry as well. We have 330 different members who are producing beef and pork and poultry and dairy, and we really feel like we have an important responsibility to be tying together the work that's occurring in the supply chain. And so for folks who are farmers and ranchers who are raising the animals, our members depend on them for what they're doing on their operations in terms of sustainability. And companies like McDonald's depend on our members to be doing the right things to satisfy McDonald's needs and other restaurants and retailers. And so several years ago, we started what we call the Protein Pact for the People, Animals, and Climate of Tomorrow, which is really meant to unify the efforts that are occurring across animal agriculture. And for us at the Meat Institute, what that has meant is trying to be more data-driven and transparent as far as what we're able to collect from our members and help data flow better through the supply chain to be done in a consistent way and make sure we're satisfying the needs of our customers in restaurants and retail, and ultimately what consumers need as well. And so for the first time several years ago, we're in our 4th year now, we were able to collect data from our members across 5 different focus areas. So climate is a key one, and environment, but we also focus on animal welfare, food safety, nutrition and food security, and labor and human rights as well. And we want to be able to identify where are the areas that the industry is really excelling, where are the areas that we need to continue to improve, and how do we as the Meat Institute provide resources to the industry to be able to advance those improvements. One of the examples of things that we've been able to do as a result of that is partner with programs like Supplier Locked, where we're able to bring education to the industry to help them learn how to measure scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, how to set targets and reduce those emissions. With such a large member base, we really have a very diverse set of members, some of whom have a lot of resources to put towards sustainability efforts. Many of whom have very few employees, don't have the same level of resources to put towards those. As an association, we can help bring those resources forward, ensure that the industry is doing so in a consistent way and is able to provide the data that everybody needs to be able to show progress and really make progress over time. And so that's why we're really proud to partner with everybody here on stage to make sure that all this work is occurring and being done across animal agriculture.
Yeah. I love how we can tie it all together at the end here. I'd love to kind of go backwards now and have each of you explain or highlight an opportunity that you're really seeing as like sort of this next step to take it to the next level and help the entire supply chain reduce emissions and be more sustainable and protect the planet.
So I can start. For me, kind of getting back to the theme, it's about collaboration to me. 98% of U.S. households purchase and consume meat each year. Meat is very popular for its protein and nutrient density, and it's going to continue to be a very popular product for the foreseeable future. And we need to be able to demonstrate our progress in a collaborative way across the whole industry. And big problems don't get solved by individual companies or sectors. McDonald's is a very large company. McDonald's cannot solve the challenges of reducing climate change on its own. We really have to do so in collaboration and partnership with each other and make sure we're working together in a consistent fashion to be able to have an impact.
Well, I'll pick that up. Yeah, we're a large company. Well, we buy a lot of beef, but we only buy about 1% of the world's beef. So there's a lot of beef still out there, and there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate. And I think most strongly when we're thinking around that on-the-ground delivery of programs, thinking around building resiliency, we don't just want to build resiliency with farms that are in our supply chain. We need to build resiliency for any farm that would like to supply us and our suppliers. And so thinking around this movement from investing just within supply chains, segregating supply chains out, and actually focusing on delivering at a landscape scale. So delivering across watersheds, in water basins, collaborating not just with our beef suppliers, but our chicken suppliers, our potato suppliers in a particular area across multiple farms, building capacity within those farms and within those ranches, building resiliency, and thinking about how we're delivering multiple benefits, not just in terms of potential carbon reduction, sequestration, climate adaptation, but also water quality and economic resilience and community benefits as well. So it's a complex future, but I feel like investing at that scale, whether that's in the US or whether that is in any other geography, is where the whole movement of this has got to go. We've got to collaborate more, and we've got to drive on-the-ground action, adaptation, resiliency.
So Alltech has a vision of working together to create a planet of plenty. And that comes from our CEO, our president. And when we go back to our beginning in the mid-'80s, the founder had a principle, and it was called the ACE principle. So everything that we did had to be good for the animal, the consumer, and the environment. And if you go back to the mid-'80s, that was not a popular thought. And I think that as we move forward, the collaborations that McDonald's has, that you're talking about, Pete, and all of the supply chain, they are very critical. But fundamentally, I think that one of the big opportunities that we have is as researchers, as companies that are bringing technologies and solutions to bear, is that if we don't kind of remember that ACE principle, and what I mean here is that if it benefits the animal, then it will drive profitability at the farm gate. And the best science in the world, if it has 100% emission reduction, if it does not drive profitability for the farm and doesn't benefit the production system, then the adoption of that technology will never hit scale. So I think one of the key things that we need to do is keep in mind that farms do what farms do best, with or without our involvement. That's why we've seen the change in the US dairy supply. We saw the same thing happen in Canada. We've seen similar results across the globe. What we can do is continue to support that by driving forward, finding solutions that drive profitability for the farm and has that benefit from a sustainability standpoint. And all of these things are the and. It's not one or. And if we can do that, then we will get the adoption. And at the same time, notice I said and again, if we can help accelerate in certain areas across the globe, that truly has the ability to kickstart their productive journey. So it's about that transfer of knowledge and getting into those communities and providing the support to just begin the process. So I think that's one of the real keys for us.
Great. Yeah. And I'd agree as well. I love that ACE approach, because in the swine industry, we say do what's right for people, pigs, and planet. You mentioned animals, consumers, in the environment. So we're always taking that holistic One Health approach. To echo what a lot of folks have already said, it takes collaboration across the barnyard, being science-based, being data-driven. The great thing in the food animal space is there's opportunities to learn from each other. What works for you, what doesn't, right? Different species, different biology at times, but sometimes when we talk about either the technology or the data collection method, there's a lot of similarities that we can learn. And I just want to give a shout out again to the Protein Pact for starting that conversation, bringing together these partners in that space and kind of standardizing even the way that we bring in and share data. And I will mention too, within the swine industry, I didn't say this earlier, we have a sustainability report that we released earlier this year that you can access at porkcares.org. And again, we're always looking for thoughts and input and feedback on how to continuously improve. So as we look for those opportunities, again, sharing learnings across the barnyard, collaborating along the way, getting feedback from our consumers, and remaining science-based and data-driven all the way.
All right, can I add anything else, right?
Yeah.
So the underlying theme, I think, is collaboration, right? And we're really, really pleased to have been, especially at the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, learning from each other, learning from each sector. I know as a cattle rancher that comes from a town of 500, it's really important for me to connect with the other people along the value chain and learn from them. But let me just give you one quick perspective from the ranch. And that is that farmers and ranchers may not like the word sustainability, or at least they didn't like the word sustainability. They're starting to become more acclimated to that word because they've always been focused on doing better, right? We always say we want to do better with the land than what we did before. My grandpa always said that do a better job than what he did. Right? So that was vitally important, ingrained in us from the very beginning. Farmers and ranchers are taking care of the land, taking care of the animals, and interested in continuous improvement, even if they call it legacy or heritage or transition. I'm really proud to be able to have my sons interested in taking over the ranch. That will ensure that we keep Blythe Family Farms in grass, and we keep that carbon in that soil, providing that health and the ability to percolate water. I mean, it just all goes together. And to me, that's the tremendous opportunity that we've got.
I think that could be a great way to conclude our conversation, but I just want to summarize. Throughout this value chain, there is a lot happening regionally with everybody involved in this supply chain, right? So in different regions across the globe, we're working locally with farmers, with organizations, with retailers, with trade associations to really advance and change practices to support greenhouse gas emissions reduction and protect the planet and improve the health of animals. So thank you all for your contributions today. Is great. Hope you all learned something about how the supply chain is really involved in supporting decarbonization. So thank you.
Thank you.